Hi, in this slide I want to stop and take a deeper dive look at an idea, a precision supply chain solution we've looked at in previous clips in this playlist. If you recall back 20 clips back or so, we talked about the four-view analysis and a light bulb going off, and we actually used a case study on a plumbing supply distributor who had a plumbing supply contractor who was buying zillions of pinches of different little materials that were losing both partners actually a lot of money. And the solution was to come up with a custom spice rack within each one of the vans. If you think about it, it's not uncommon, particularly in either contractor channels at the counter or in vendor managed inventory, just in time sort of kits that we put together for manufacturers if we're an OEM distributor. We're really kind of doing the equivalent if in a retail environment of walking in or having a customer walk in and say, "Hi, I'd like one AA battery." And we're thinking, because we have 80% margin, something ridiculous compared to what we're normally used to, that's got to be a winner. I mean, it's turning 12 times a year, it's got 80% margin, what could be better than that? But 80% of a dollar is 80 cents, and it costs us $8 to pick it using this 1920 grocery store model. Now, in the 20s, you'd walk into a grocery store and you'd give some grocery jock a list and say, "Here's what I want," and they'd run around the store and pick it all for you and package it up and put it in the trunk of your horseless carriage, because the assumption was you didn't want to get your hands dirty, and if you gave them a nickel, they thought they'd died and gone to heaven, or maybe even a nickel once a week or once a month type of thing. As opposed to today, if we went over to Home Depot and timed ourselves from the time we parked the car to running in to get two little miscellaneous contractor supply items, whether it be electrical or plumbing or whatever, maintenance supplies, etc., we scan it ourselves, swipe our credit card through, and for $7.12, we're back in our car in 5 minutes elapsed time. Clearly, these big retailers have been doing a lot of supply chain automation over the last 25, 30 years that maybe a lot of independent, distribution companies haven't done. Now, if I walk in to any kind of retail store and say I want a AA battery, there's nobody for me to ask. I basically have to go and decide, am I going to buy 4 of them, where they've got a rip-off price per unit, or 12 where I get a much better price, or 18 where I'm buying a private label, whatever. So when you go into a retail store, notice how much stuff is bundled. They may have for show a display where you can buy one stick of chapstick, but when you look at the price versus what it costs per tube of 3 shrink wrapped together, you just go for the 3. And I'm convinced that they have that one thing there just as a display, hoping you'll never touch it, because that just forces you to buy 3 and not be upset about the fact that they're trying to charge you more. In an environment where we are delivering just-in-time kits to a manufacturer, if the kit includes the equivalent of paper clips, so that they're calling up, we have 100 deliveries a year, 100 just-in-time deliveries a year, where the pick is averaging $1 per line item. Then we can go check and look at biggest losing invoices and find out that there are rush orders for just paper clips. In other words, somebody over at the plant's got downtime for lack of a $1 paper clip. So what's the downtime cost worth? So to go back and say, look, how about if you only order this 4 times a year, and then it'll be $25 per line item, and maybe $8, $9 of margin for us, which covers the cost of picking in a distribution warehouse, or even 2 times a year at $50. So fine, we're loading you up with $50 worth of inventory annually, but you're trading off. So you think, well, what's my carrying costs? What's the risk that somebody's going to steal these paper clips, shrinkage, versus, well, wait a minute, one uptime game, that's 3 times the cost of the carrying cost. Plus, look at the reduction we're having in paperwork and reorder activity for 98 line items that now we don't have. Now, in other factory environments, there may already be an existing storage space for items, and we go over and we do vendor managed inventory, and in our head we're thinking, well, we're shooting for 12 turns a year on all these items, let's say. Well, no, you don't want to shoot for 12 turns a year on paper clips. You want to shoot for $25 per line item, rounded off to pack quantities. Maybe it's $32 or something. And so those items, you only are really going to top off, 4 times a year, twice a year, maybe once a year. But it all makes sense from a total math viewpoint for both partners. So we need to have that line item profit analytics tuned into the customer. So when we go out and we talk with the customer, we're not saying, here's my theory versus your theory. We're saying, here is your statistical data. You're picking these pinches of salt a zillion times, and you've got emergency orders for pinches of salt. So what's the cost of that? If we took these elements, which the total carrying cost, we can compute that. It's nothing, and nobody would steal this stuff. The shrinkage issue is not. But look at what you gain on activity costs and downtime costs. It's a very factual, and it's a very creative, and it's a very collaborative. We're not talking about you against me, and really we're uneasy the whole time. There's big tension because you're going to beat me up for an extra 1 or 2 points. I'm trying to sneak an extra 1 or 2 points of margin into you. That margin war is just put over to the side. And we're not saying that price isn't important. We're not saying it's an either or thing. We're saying it's and both. We want to be competitive on price and we want to look at all these other elements, but heretofore we didn't have the math to even have a conversation about. So this is a wonderful new vein of gold for whoever has this information, these insights first. Once all this stuff has been mined and put into place and supply chain redesigns with all your biggest customers, that opportunity is over. Hopefully we'll be the first ones to do it as opposed to one of our competitors. Thank you.